Hi guys, welcome back to the Social Tune, and today we are finally taking a look at the comeback album by the legendary UK act Gorillaz, Humanz.
All my life, me ever have my gun, so me have to move sharp like me knife. All my life, me pray say when me get wealthy, I'm my wife. All my life, this thing force me to be a killer just like Rodney Price.
So one of the questions that I've been getting a lot this past month is whether or not I'd be checking out the newest album by Gorillaz. And I've been trying, guys, but the truth is, when this album dropped, I wasn't really a Gorillaz initiate, having not even heard a full album from them. Heck, none of their songs outside of some of their singles. So, in order to prepare for this review, over the past month, I went through every single one of their albums, and they're alright. I kind of feel bad because everybody loves Gorillaz, especially music critics. But out of all of their albums, I was hard-pressed to find much that really stuck with me. One of the songs that I obviously knew before diving into their discography was Feel Good Inc. off of their album Demon Days, which in my opinion remains their best album. And honestly, that song is the best thing they've ever done, which in a way is cool. It's kind of nice to know that they're best known for their best work. But in another way, it's kind of disappointing to think that nothing in their discography ever managed to top it. Now, I'll also say that they've never released a bad album, so despite all of that, I was still kind of looking forward to Humanz. And boy was I disappointed. I'm not kidding when I say that on this album they made so many choices that I'm not a fan of that it kind of pissed me off listening to it. It's easily one of Gorillaz' worst albums and I did not enjoy it. And with that glowing endorsement, let's start with the lyrics.
We got the power to be loving each other no matter what happens. We got the power to do that.
On a le pouvoir de s'aimer, ok?
We got the power to be ringing the great bell out there above us. We got the power for that. We got the power to do that.
Now, the running theme of this album is that it's basically a reaction to everything that's gone on in politics in this past year, from the US presidential election to Brexit. And look, this is Gorillaz. They've made albums about post-apocalyptic societies being ruled by the higher-ups pulling the strings in the past. Something that definitely appeals to their main audience, stoners who are high and paranoid off of their drugs. Gorillaz has always been a hugely popular act to vibe out to, which I'll get more into once I discuss the production. And I will say, while some people have criticized Damon Albarn for editing out all the references to Trump on this album, I actually support this choice. Not only because, as Albarn said, that guy doesn't need any more attention, but also because it would seriously date this album. You can't afford to be too explicit. But with that said, my main issue with this album is that none of it is explicit. Across this album, I can't think of any memorable lines outside of maybe that reference to the Clue Clown Clan on Momantz. That was kind of funny. But that's one short part of one of the worst songs on this album. Basically, so much of this album feels incredibly forgettable and inconsequential. They don't go into specifics, but they don't even sketch out a vague outline of what they're trying to go for either. And it doesn't help that our guests just aren't all that impressive.
When the bossing looks to laugh for, take it in your heart now, lover. When the case is out and taught and sodden.
Okay, here's something that really does annoy me, namely the fact that there's barely any Gorillaz on this album. Instead, almost every single one of these 20 songs feature guests who take over the entire track. There's barely any of 2D's iconic throaty voice on this album outside of on Charger and Busted and Blue, which is kind of a shame considering he's the main indicator that this is even a Gorillaz album. And that would be fine if the guests managed to do a good job, but so many of them just fall flat. either because of bad production choices or because they're just not trying. Out of all of them, the best ones are easily Vince Staples on Ascension, which is by far my favorite song on this album, and Pusha T and Mavis Staples on Let Me Out. And even though the production on the song was just plain bad, Anthony Hamilton did do a decent job on Carnival. But other than those guys, Grace Jones sounds bored on Charger, Kali Uchis sounds extremely processed on She's My Color, Sex Murder Party, despite sounding okay, was impossible to take remotely seriously because of its fucking title. And like I said before, Momantz may be memorable, but it's still an awful song. From the terrible falsetto to the awkward rapping from De La Soul, especially with that awful vocal production, not to mention the wonky, jerky chorus and the high-pitched children's choir. I'm sorry, it's a terrible song. And on the topic of terrible songs, take the unbelievably cheesy We Got the Power featuring Jenny Beth. Seriously, Gorillaz, I never thought that I'd be calling you sellouts, but between this and the dancehall vibes on Strobelite, you are really testing my patience. And that's not even mentioning the future imitation Popcaan is doing on Saturnz Barz. Oh, and if we're talking about criminally underusing or miscasting artists, take D.R.A.M, who's barely there on Andromeda. Seriously, you need to strain to hear him. And Danny Brown on Submission. I'll give Kalila credit, she actually does sound pretty good on that song, but Danny's feature just comes out of nowhere and doesn't fit at all. But let's get to the main issue, the production.
You are now tuned into the tomb of Jehovah. Play my tunes loud enough to shake the room. What's that hold up? Heard the world is in it soon. I assume that they told you they trying to dinosaur us. So now it's time to go up.
Now, one of the things that I've always appreciated about Gorillaz is their defiantly organic production, especially in their really great bass lines. Here, though, they opted to go for much more electronic production, with hi-hats, bass beats, fake drums, synths, and boy does it not work at all. I'd be fine with this choice if they still managed to make good music with it, but no, a lot of these songs just do not sound good. From the depressing auto-tuned mess of Saturnz Barz, to the minimal nothingness with the incredibly out-of-place gospel vocals on Hallelujah Money, to the half-hearted stab at creating a creepy vibe on Carnival, which fails because they don't commit to it. Side note, why didn't you just switch Anthony Hamilton and Danny Brown's features, because neither of them sound comfortable on their own songs and they would have fit perfectly on each other's. Then you have the extremely staccato She's My Color, the dancehall inspired Strobelite and Sex Murder Party. Even though I will admit to kind of liking the former, it still doesn't sound anything like a Gorillaz track. Or take the jerky, unfocused, percussion-heavy Momantz. And again, We Got the Power is just an utter mess that ends far too suddenly, even if it is mercifully short. Now, we do have some moments that work. Let Me Out has a good melody with good features, and again, the fast-paced Vince Staples song Ascension is really good. But outside of those two, Strobelite and maybe Busted in Blue in a pinch, I outright disliked or didn't care for most of the songs on this album, which I never thought a Gorillaz project would do for me. And so unfortunately, I can't recommend this. I've never been a big Gorillaz fan by any means, but this is the first one of their albums that I truly disliked. It was a huge disappointment. I'm sure some people will like the fact that there's more electronic production and more features, but for me, no. It's a 4 out of 10, which may seem harsh, but I'm sorry, between all the half-baked ideas and the flimsy execution, I can't see anyone liking this, even if they're high off their ass. So thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. I know this is bound to be controversial, so if you disagree with me, just leave your thoughts in the comments. Please keep it slightly civil. And if there are any other albums coming out in the next month or so, please post them in the comments or tweet them at me at The Social Tune, link in the description. Please subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and until the next time, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tune, signing off.